Welcome to Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame mode fandom. My name is Wilder Adams, and in today's episode, we are going to react to the Minnesota Timberwolves schedule release. I think that's been gradually happening throughout the week. We got to see some of the national televised games Minnesota got early in the year, the opening night, Christmas, MLK Day, and then also now we get to see everything. And today I'm alongside Tim Garrison. We're going to react to that and talk about whatever else there is to talk about NBA related in August. Timberwolves are in Paris. Tim, how are you doing?
I cannot believe that we're 6 weeks away from opening day, and we're going to have LaMelo Ball suited up for the Minnesota Timberwolves storming the court 6 weeks away. I mean, when that trade went down last month, it sends shockwaves, and it hurts to lose Nas, but there's just so much excitement, and I cannot wait to see it. I just need to get to the stadium to see what this is all about. And right now, this whole Paris trip is kind of giving us that. It's scratching the itch of we're starting to creep into the dog days of summer. We just want some Timberwolves content. And here's Rudy Gobert making this professionally edited video outlining the week in Paris for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Man, it makes you realize you're still in August, and that's the bittersweet part. But
Yeah.
honestly, this offseason, shout out to LaMelo, shout out to the Timberwolves for giving us so many storylines, because usually it's a month before when things get quiet, and there's always been something. And honestly, now we can enjoy August for what August is, right? Overreacting to highlight videos and players traveling. But yeah, man, honestly, what did you think about, first of all, the players making that effort to go out into Paris and work together as a team? I personally have been a big fan of that. The fact that this team has been so intentional, trying to build that chemistry immediately. What did you think?
You know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ant. He's talked about it, about how the closest teams typically go far in the playoffs. For him to put his money where his mouth is, and I quite literally put his money where his mouth is, and then for LaMelo Ball to come into a new team and say, "Yeah, let's do it. I want this situation to work. Let's go get to know each other," and to have both of them make it happen. And it's something where Rudy Gobert, we've noticed over the course of his career, whenever he's involved, whether it's on the court, off the court, whatever it may be, he plays better. And you know that Rudy Gobert absolutely appreciated the gesture
Mm-hmm.
of LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards making it happen and getting that entire team, besides Bones, over to Paris. It's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, it's not just an August fluff piece. It's a legitimately cool thing to watch Anthony Edwards make it happen, and step up as a leader.
That's the key thing right there, stepping up as a leader. His leadership has always been way ahead of schedule for how young he's been. It's always been, wow, he's great for his age. Wow, he's 23 doing this, 24 doing this. But this year, what makes this year especially exciting on the surface is that this is the no excuse year anymore. And people hear that, and that sounds like we're saying that we're invalidating Edwards in some way. No, it's just that's the natural, process as a player. When you get to that age 25 season, you've been in the league for 7 years, you've been in 5 playoff appearances, 3 in which you get past the first round. This is the time usually when you have to take that step. And seeing the team lose a lot of veterans this offseason, I know Randall, many of us don't view him in the value of a veteran, but he's still a veteran. And then you have Kyle Anderson leave, Mike Conley leave. You're bringing LaMelo Ball. This was a lot of weight on Anthony Edwards to become that type of leader. Also weight on LaMelo Ball in that mix as well, and LaMelo Ball. So the fact that they've responded right away, man, and they've made the effort. Ant's had LaMelo stay at his house. They've been training in Minneapolis all summer. I mean, in 2018, if you're a Timberwolf, you were out in Cancun all summer long. That's a little different now. It's just I love the seriousness.
Yeah.
Minnesota, Finch has talked about how serious Anthony Edwards has taken this offseason and how much more outspoken he's been.
Mhm.
And I think at this point, when there's no basketball games being played right now, Ant's doing all the right things off the court, as are LaMelo Ball. And that makes me
Mhm.
really optimistic that these guys are going to walk in and I think prove a lot of doubters wrong who question their maturity.
And excuse me, LaMelo, he's also going into his age 25 year.
Mhm.
Everything that we just said about Ant between the two of us also applies to LaMelo.
Mhm.
And he has this reputation as an unserious player. And yes, there's some pretty bad defensive metrics, but I don't think it paints the whole story. Um, I got to be really careful with this comparison because I'm not saying he is going to be the caliber of this player. But look back at the early days of SGA on OKC. He had a lot of injuries. He could never really stay on the court. But at the same time, how much of that was truly just OKC tanking? But the fact of the matter is this: when SGA and LaMelo Ball were on the court and actually healthy, their teams played significantly better, measurably better on across multiple metrics. And yeah, I'm not saying he's about to take a SGA MVP caliber leap, but that level of impact suggests there's so much more substance than what's being talked about. And that's what I'm really excited for. Okay, is there more there in a serious setting? Can he stay healthy? Can he be that consistent factor? And are these underlying metrics that kind of show, okay, this team plays way better when he's on the court? Is that fact, or is it just kind of, you know, just a blip on the radar of some advanced metrics? And that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing the proof of.
Yeah, and LaMelo Ball, it's crazy because the Lonzo Ball, LiAngelo, LaMelo, LeVar Big Baller brand,
Oh yeah,
that story is almost 10 years old, which blows my
nuts.
mind
Yeah,
how fast this has gone with these
yeah.
storylines. But I do feel like that time frame, LaMelo Ball has been fighting notions that
Mm,
he didn't really create
yeah,
because I don't know about you, man, but if someone put a camera on my face at 15 years old, I think a lot of people would think I'm a goofball right now.
for sure.
And
All of
honestly,
us.
I'm at 22 years old, I was a goofball and I had a camera on my face. So LaMelo, I get it in that front to a way more scaled down sense than you, but I think he's always had to fight that. And
Yeah.
then he comes into the NBA and he goes to a losing organization and battles injuries. And I think that confirmation bias is just kind of set in, or everybody's like, see, told you, you can't win like that.
Yeah.
Flashy. And I feel like as Timberwolves fans, man, we should be able to emphasize with them as much as anybody because
Yeah.
we saw the notions that were created by Karl Anthony Towns or
Mhm.
toward Karl Anthony Towns losing on these teams, people calling him a loser, and then he
Mhm.
went somewhere else. Because more often
Yeah.
it's a reflection of the organization, not
Correct.
the player. But for some reason, we keep going back to this pattern where we give bad organizations too much credit.
Mhm.
And then we give the really talented young man no
Mhm.
grace.
Yeah,
And that's why I've said LaMelo Ball, I think, could be going to Minnesota at the right time, age 25,
for
in a
sure.
situation where he's expected to win. I think he has the opportunity and the potential to flip so many narratives and tap into an upside that I don't even think he's been close to tapping into yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, really well put. Uh, and just to tie back to that SGA point, I mean, those years, like for the first part of his career, he wasn't playing with anybody.
Mm-mm.
The first year was probably his best team when he had Gordon Hayward, who was still a really solid player at driving winning. Um, how many of those years were a lot of those injuries just the Hornets actually trying to tank? Do we overstate the injuries? I mean, look at SGA. He had a huge injury crisis early in his career, but how much of that was just OKC tanking? All of a sudden, they're a serious team, and he's playing 70 games a year. It wouldn't surprise me. And again, to that point, it's no coincidence that Charlotte is serious for the first time in a couple of years, and LaMelo plays a lot of games. So I think there's a lot of narratives that are blown out of proportion about him, which is funny because 3 months ago I was probably all aboard those false narrative trains. But then when you just kind of sit down and look at the picture a little bit clearer, there's just a lot to like. There's a lot to like, and I'm really excited to see what it looks like, especially next to Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, that's going to be something I'm really excited to see. I hope for him. I hope what happened to Karl Anthony Towns, where he left Minnesota and
Mhm.
proved out as wrong. I hope that's the reverse in this situation because it always feels
Mhm.
like, honestly, man, it felt like 2026 was the biggest punch in the face toward
Yeah.
Minnesota fans. Sam Darnold leaves Minnesota, wins a
Oh,
Super Bowl in Seattle. Karl Anthony Towns leaves, goes to New York, wins a championship. Minnesota gets Julius Randle back, gets 3
yeah.
points on a season-closing game. It just feels like that this whole season, it's been like double middle finger after double middle
Yeah.
finger when it comes to people leaving Minnesota and things being better for them right after. I just hope that's different this time, man.
Yeah.
As a fan, I want this to be different. And I can't really say anything else from an analysis perspective. I hope this is the opportunity for
Mhm.
him and Ant to just really put it together. Getting them at age 25, man, that's
Mhm.
just so exciting. And once again, I feel like the league is giving the organization too much credit. I think
Yeah.
when they traded Cat, everybody said, like Cat's this, Cat's that. Minnesota was right for dumping him. And then a year later, it's Minnesota's the dumbest organization in the league, worst trade ever. And,
Yeah.
so
So I want to get on my soapbox really quick because it's a parallel to LaMelo, what you just said. I agree wholeheartedly. And if you look back, going into that year, the first Rudy year, there was a lot of evidence that Karl Anthony Towns was starting to become a very solid defender. He's always been an elite rebounder. He's always been an elite offensive system in his own right. Um, but it was always like, oh, he can't play defense. And he's not a drop big. It's not the best fit for him. You kind of need a certain personality for him to work as a center. But one on one, he broke out in that first Rudy year. Um, and then it's not a coincidence. The next year, he was a major part of a historically good defense. Um, and that ties into LaMelo because the underlying stats are there for LaMelo too. That there's a lot of underlying advanced metrics that show, and we brought it up already on the pod, that the team simply plays way better with him on the court. I also think some of the defensive metrics are a little bit overstated. I mean, how many of those metrics are also just due to an unserious team at the time?
mm-hmm.
So there's just a lot of underlying, similar to Cat, about how he was an elite one-on-one defender these playoffs on route to a title. All that stuff was starting to break through the surface 3 years ago. And I think we're going to look back 3 years from now and point to LaMelo, as long as he stays healthy, which I think is very likely, that, okay, why did we not see this coming? It's all there.
Yeah, and we'll get into the schedule conversation later in the show, everybody. I think this is a really good thing to continue tapping into because I actually think this circles around to a point I wanted to make on the show in relation to LaMelo Ball because I was thinking about Chris Finch the last couple
Mhm.
days, man. And you keep watching his videos being asked about LaMelo Ball, and I think the glowing nature that everybody in the organization has had toward the guy, and also thinking about the last few years when Chris Finch has always implied, I want to be able to play a more free flowing guard based system. And he's always had big man after big man after big man. And I was thinking about for somebody who really wanted to play free flowing, why did he do that? And I've come to the conclusion, man, I think in his mind, he didn't think that the young guards that he wants to build around were quite ready to do what he wanted to do at a
Mm.
championship level. And the front court gave him a floor that can allow the team to play against some of those high level teams in the Western Conference. And I circle that to LaMelo Ball. And I think we've all had frustrations with Chris Finch at the time. And people saying Chris Finch sometimes is late to calling a timeout, or sometimes he doesn't put enough structure into his offense and all these things. I think that's because he's always wanted to play free flowing basketball, and that's
Mhm.
his top instinct, and he can't escape himself sometimes.
Yeah.
This is the first time where this team is structured where it has to lean into that style with LaMelo Ball, man, at the helm, with Anthony Edwards, with Ayo Dosunmu, all those guards all of a sudden on the team. Jaden, who could be the most free-flowing four in the NBA if he plays power forward. And
Mhm.
now I'm looking at this like Chris Finch has a lot of pressure now, man, because Chris Finch, a lot of the, I think, theorizing we've had that if Chris Finch had more personnel that geared toward how he wanted to play, those excuses go away if this doesn't
Yeah.
work. And I just think that LaMelo on this team, for all the reasons why we should be so excited about how he could fit with Chris Finch, I do think it puts an extra highlight on Chris Finch. So what do you think about that?
I think Chris Finch has been here before. I think D'Angelo Russell is a similar archetype. And I think before I dive through that, so I don't have any listeners just tear their ears out at my comment there, LaMelo Ball is a much far and away better player than D'Angelo Russell. But I do believe they're of a similar archetype. And D'Angelo Russell had some great moments as a Timberwolf. So I don't want it to be convoluted with what he is now. Uh, but that year before Rudy Gobert, watching D'Angelo Russell, and even the first year with Rudy Gobert, how D'Angelo Russell was nuclear for 2 months, and how it just made life easier for Anthony Edwards, who, watching back those games now, you could see the athleticism, but man, the polish was not there. But the fact of the matter is this: the whole point of what I'm trying to make here is D'Angelo Russell was so much of a threat as both a shooter, scorer, and passer that it made Ant's life remarkably easy compared to what he's been doing since. Even with Mike, Mike didn't have quite the same ability to heat up and score. He was a great catch and shoot player, but he had kind of lost his ability to attack by the time he got to Minnesota. Um, D'Angelo Russell made Ant's life easier, and it propelled Chris Finch's flow style offense to one of the best in the league that year. And now he has an even better player and a more polished Anthony Edwards, and he has Rudy Gobert this time. He didn't have Rudy Gobert last time. This could be a very great fit, and I cannot wait for Minnesota to unlock the best movement shooter in the world in Anthony Edwards, who shot 48.4% on catch and shoots last year.
And Minnesota that year before they got Rudy Gobert was the number one offense in the NBA post All-Star break. And you mentioned the D'Angelo Russell comparison and how everybody will freak out about that. And I'll concur with that because we did see moments in which he had ice in his brains.
Yeah.
And LaMelo Ball has an ability to push the pace and play in a free-flowing offense that is way ahead of D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell, like Ant at times, likes to slow things down and get methodical, kind of like Julius Randle in that way too. LaMelo is the first guard since really Ricky Rubio, whose instinct is push the pace, let's get the ball moving, extra pass. And you throw Ayo Dosunmu in that mix too, who I don't want to be ignored in this conversation as well with how fast he plays. And this really is the first time Minnesota is going to have a guard heavy roster, plus with guards whose instinct is to push the pace and
Yes.
play structured basketball, but in a fast, free flowing style, which I think better aligns with what Chris Finch likes to do, which I think makes it
I
so
agree.
intriguing what Chris Finch could do with this offense.
Yeah. And like on the LaMelo D'Lo comparison, I'm not, again, it's not a perfect comparison. The only reason why I make it is it's the only instance of a dynamic guard next to Ant that can score in bunches and run the offense. And when you look at it and you just see how that ability to score and command respect made it life easier for Ant, but also brought to life Chris Finch's system, you just wonder like, oh wow, what is this going to look like with LaMelo? If it was that good with D'Lo and an unpolished Ant, what's it going to look like with a near MVP caliber Ant and LaMelo instead of D'Lo. And that's what's really exciting for me.
Yeah, and it puts an expectation on this offense that
Mhm.
when I say pressure, I don't want it to be misconstrued like he's on this major hot seat to start the year. All I'm saying is this is the first time the offense really does have to be in that top 5 range at minimum.
Yeah. I
Or
mean, I think it has to be top 3. And I
yeah,
don't think that's insane to even say. I mean, obviously, this is assuming LaMelo plays, 70 games or more. Um, but, I mean, there's no reason this team can't be a top 3 offense.
no doubt. No doubt. I mean, it has to be. Like you
Yep.
mentioned, the Hornets were the number 1 offense in the NBA for the final half of last year too.
Mhm.
And
Minnesota has better personnel.
yeah, because Ant's basically Con Knipple if you mix that with Dwayne Wade.
Right. I mean, and this probably kind of ties in naturally to the roster hole at the 4. But, Minnesota has time. I've kind of disagreed with the prevailing narrative that it has to be fixed now. When you're under 26 core, is locked up for 3 years, you do have some time, especially considering you don't have picks. I would be patient. Not to mention the final piece of that whole take is you have 3 guys who potentially could fill in the gap naturally, internally, and that's Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Clark, and Terrence Shannon Jr. You also have Josh Green. I like the concept, and I'm curious about your take on this too. I like the concept of a low maintenance player as the 5th starter. And so I'm looking at you, Jalen Clark, Josh Green. It's not that they're like the 5th best player, but I think you need someone that can space, provide a secondary perimeter defender, and can be an active cutter and provide some athleticism. But also not need the ball. That kind of describes Jalen Clark and Josh Green.
Yeah, no doubt. And you also need somebody who can just guard the point of attack.
Mhm.
If we're going to have Jaden at the 4, you need to have people who can get Jaden off of that position in a comfortable
Yeah.
manner. So I totally agree with you. You don't need to put a Harlem Globetrotter starting 5 or super team in your starting 5 and expect it to work. Some of the best teams in the NBA have a Derek Fisher start at point guard,
Yeah.
right? Or Mario Chalmers on the Miami Heat, or go up and down a 3-and-D wing like an old Shane Battier on a super team. You don't
Yeah.
need to have these rosters that have your 5 best players in your starting lineup all the time. My question has been less about do they need a PJ Washington caliber starting
Mhm.
4, and it's been more about does Minnesota have enough big bodies? Just
Yes.
if a Gobert or a Beringer get hurt. I'm more worried about that, having an extra big body in that scenario, or if you're playing a team like the Heat, which they'll be playing first game of the year, and we just see Jaden's not working on Giannis, you need to have
Mhm.
options there. But outside of that, I do think the power forward conversation at this moment, we'll see how the season looks. We can maybe consider different at the deadline. But for now, I do think it's overplayed.
So as of this point, okay, go back the last 2 years. All anyone could talk about is point guard, point guard, point guard. Well, we made the Western Conference Final 1 year, and we still put up a decent fight, even though we were battered against the Western Conference champion and the Spurs this past year, all without a point guard. I think that point guard hole was way bigger than this 4 hole is on this team. And I honestly think you may not even need a starting caliber player. You could probably fill it with a 7th or 8th man who can stretch the floor, maybe start matchup depending when you have a really big team. But that's what, 4 teams in the league. I don't think you need a world beater, but I agree with you. I'm a little bit concerned, even if you get a breakout from Jaden Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Clark, and Terrence Shannon Jr. Even if all 3 prove to be a 4, I still think I won't feel super great about this team unless they have some insurance as a big man. Um, but I just don't think it's that big of a hole. And not to mention, I don't think it's going to matter in the regular season, which is why I think you can be patient with it. Unless there's some like crazy fire sale from Dallas or Memphis we want to balance our roster and you can get someone that you shouldn't get for just Jalen Green. I don't know. I think you have more than enough to be totally fine and be on a 50-plus win pace up to the deadline.
And also, I want to make this one point on top of that. All these theoretical teams that we're talking about, in which we might match up poorly with, we matched up poorly with them last year because Julius Randle couldn't score on these teams, the teams with bigger front courts. So it's not like Minnesota getting off a power forward has solved this significant or created this significant issue in terms of rebounding and being productive against bigger teams. Minnesota has already had issues with these teams in the past. So I don't think that all of a sudden Naz Reid and Julius Randle leave and Minnesota is going to forget how to rebound. I actually think LaMelo Ball is a more natural rebounder than both. And we already struggle with those bigger teams for different reasons.
Yeah.
So I also think Minnesota, the value, it was great to have 48 minutes of quality power forward play. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Naz Reid is a really good player. Julius Randle is still a really good player. But I do think that the size and the conversations at that front are a little too simplified, just in my personal opinion.
Well, let's look at the two best teams in the conference, right? I mean, the front court of OKC and the Spurs. I mean, they don't have a bruiser at the 4. There's no reason why Jaden couldn't be on a shot. He's not that much smaller than Chet. It's not like you're going to have a bruiser that can take him to the paint against both those teams. In fact, not having just this slower, consolidated ISO ball team, and you have a more switchable, fast, up-tempo team is going to match up way better against him. You're going to be able to get down the court faster with Wemby. So he's not set. Against the Thunder, you're going to have multiple people going to handle the ball. That was the recipe of why the Pacers nearly beat the Thunder 2 years ago. So it's just, I don't know if it's that big of a deal against the top teams in the West. Again, like just for insurance purposes, I do think they need to add somebody. But maybe that's a buyout guy if you get the breakout from Jaden, Terrence Shannon Jr., or Clark, if two of them prove they can be solid 4s. There's also guys out there. I mean, Jonathan Kuminga has not signed a contract yet. And while I struggle to see him signing a minimum, my tune changes on that if he's still unsigned in mid to late September, where it's like, all right, dude, nobody's paying you. Training camp starts next week. At that point, the Timberwolves are probably your best option to get a payday and have an opportunity. So maybe they could still add somebody like that. And sure, Kuminga's maybe not the best fit, but he's got that athletic profile where maybe he could, if he bought in finally, be an Aaron Gordon style. Aaron Gordon before he went nuclear from deep. Maybe you could get that, and that could be a huge thing. He fits the up-tempo style too, even if it's not the best fit with Rudy. So there's still options. I don't think it's that big, as big of a problem in the regular season. And I think they have plenty of time to find the right solution. And I think they'll make a more educated decision having a 50-game sample size of Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Clark, and Terrence Shannon Jr. at the 4.
For all those reasons, man, I am fully with you. I think it's fair to just wait out and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes, and I whined about this with the Vikings too, I don't have a big issue with just betting on young players once in a while. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you have a bad year with JJ McCarthy, but I think taking a swing on these things once in a while is how you find cheap talent that keeps your long-term success going when other players get really expensive. And it's already a new team, so acting like, all right, we have to fill this hole, we won't really know until we watch them play.
Bingo.
So if you over address an issue now, you might realize that you picked that issue in an alternative to the actual issue the team has. And I love what you said about the Pacers, because how often have we said, and I think all of us can agree with this is why it was a no-brainer to get a LaMelo type player, is because a team like the Pacers, when they have all these ball handlers, they're able to counteract all the point of attack pressure OKC has had. Minnesota hasn't been able to do that because Anthony Edwards is the only guy who can create with pressure on the ball. Yep. Rob Dillingham's supposed to be that, but he was a kid and he's my height. Yeah. So I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
but that's just why it's just we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. It's August, man, and
Yeah.
I have an overthinking issue. So the more I think and think and think, I might have issues before the season even starts. So any final thoughts, man, before we transition to the schedule?
No, I mean, I think this leads in. I'm obviously tracking towards a very positive schedule assessment. So I think this whole dialogue leads into the schedule just fine. Let's get after it.
Awesome, man. So let's get into the schedule. So Minnesota, one less national televised game going into the season than last year.
Mhm.
So that's somewhat notable, I think, but they're still top 10 in nationally televised games. They have one of the original second day of the year, but they have a game against the Miami Heat on ESPN. They have
Yeah.
a Christmas game hosting against the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is the first time in franchise history Minnesota is hosting a Christmas game. They got the Hornets on MLK Day, and
Oh.
the second half of the year, I believe. So the first half of the year, it's only 9 games on national television. The second half, 18.
Hmm.
So it is going to be much more dense in the second half of big game after big game. And I have some interesting thoughts on this, and I just want to hear what you think first.
I think the Timberwolves, and this goes back to the first topic we talked about with the Paris trip. The Timberwolves have a chance to come out of the gate firing. They have a very favorable start to the schedule. Um, what a great time to play Miami. They're going to be trying to figure out how the spacing works with Bam and Giannis, which I don't think is. I think it's going to be a great defensive fit, but it's going to take some time for them to understand how to play alongside each
Mhm.
other. Neither can really spread the floor off ball. So what a great time to play them. I think they'll end up being a good team, but I don't think they're going to be a good team the first month of the year. um, that leads into a very favorable stretch where you have a New Orleans away game that leads into an 8-game homestand. Now, I'm of the opinion I think Utah is going to be a borderline playoff team. I don't think that's a cakewalk anymore. New York is good, but you have 6 very winnable games against teams that are projected to be outside the play-in. Uh, I think it's imperative that Minnesota hits the ground running, kind of gets off to a similar start as they did 3 years ago, where they were like 13-4. And if they can do that, that allows them to maybe play 500 or slightly below 500 basketball when the schedule flips really brutally towards the end of December into early January.
A lot on the road
Oh
that
yeah,
time.
and it's a gauntlet. There's good teams. Uh, And if you can go 500, it sets up a period of time after the deadline in March where you again have a lot of home games and some winnable games where you can build that momentum for the playoffs. So it's crucial they start fast. Crucial.
Absolutely. And on a side note relating to the schedule, I think selfishly, I love that the home games are mostly in November and March, so we can avoid blizzard driving games in January. I
Oh
don't know if you
man.
remember this, but a couple years ago, there was like that stretch. They had a lot of home games in around December, January, and it kept snowing. And the couple games I went to during that time, it was brutal. So thank God for that. It still might have blizzards for the games we have during that time of the year. But I think you positioned it perfectly, the opportunity for Minnesota
Mm-hmm.
to figure things out at home
Mm-hmm.
against not too difficult of a schedule. And I'll also add, on top of that, like I said, Minnesota has 9 games on national television, the first 41. So while this team is getting figured out and trying to synergize, they're going to have a lot of games at home, and they're going to be a little more behind the scenes than the second half of the year, which might be really good for just
Yeah.
Minnesota figuring things out on the fly and not having the microscope on them compared to a team like Philadelphia. And we know LeBron teams never start out strong when he goes to the team. So first couple months of the year, we can hear about on ESPN how horrible the Sixers are, and then we can just in the background figure out whatever we need to figure out, man. So I actually, while there's technically one last nationally televised game compared to last year. The fact that it's so back heavy and not front heavy, I I personally prefer, because it's still going to be adjustment for LaMelo
Oh
for the
yeah.
team. They're going to have ups and downs, so I really like that aspect.
Yeah, and one thing you brought up about us kind of being under the radar, something I actually really like go across against the grain on with Chris Finch. A lot of people, especially in the first 2-3 months of the year, get really critical with how he runs the day-to-day lineups and what he's choosing to do. I look at it very differently. I think he is always, at least for the last 3 years, 3-4 years, I think he is always looking for what is going to work in April. And that's going to come at the detriment of October, November, December. I mean, look at the Nas Reed, Julius Randle pairing. Last year, that's all anyone could talk about for the first 2 months of the year. It ended up being a very positive pairing by the end of the year. And why? Because Chris Finch didn't listen to Twitter. He stuck to his guns. He believed in the lineup and he played through it. And that's going to happen again. To all the listeners out there, they're going to play lineups that you're going to want to tear your hair out. But guess what? Check the lineup again in February, March. Might be a little bit different. And it gets there because Chris Finch continues to stick with it because there's a bigger picture that's not game to game on a game in November. So I've always appreciated that about Chris Finch. Not to like just finger wave or hand wave everything away of his faults. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But specifically with lineups, I'm just intrigued to see what he's targeting and how things develop over the course of the first 3, 4, 5 months here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the schedule really allows him to really test the waters with the, like you said, behind the radar, with all the home games.
Mm-hmm.
Not the first seven or so games, it's a little challenging, but
Mm-hmm.
there's that pit of like 10 games right after
Yeah.
that where it's very winnable, and being able to go through the lumps at that time. And I also want to mention LaMelo Ball historically, I had the numbers in front of me, what the numbers were, but LaMelo Ball is really good against bad teams. And Minnesota has always had that problem. So part of
Mm-hmm.
my optimism is for a team that is so different compared to last year, they should be able to put together wins in a more favorable sense with this schedule compared to what it
Mm-hmm.
could have been, because LaMelo Ball is one of the guys who does take the Wizards seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and a guy who takes bad teams seriously. That's an advantage. Behind the scenes is an advantage. And this allows Chris Finch to test the waters. And because you have multiple creators, man, and Rudy Gobert is a defensive system by himself, even if they're not clicking, they're so individually talented that they
Mm-hmm.
can still create something. In
Yeah.
Minnesota, other years, outside of Anthony Edwards, everybody needed the environment to be beneficial for them to get the ball in the right place. Or
Mm-hmm.
you have some ISO ball that gets really ugly. And I think just with LaMelo and Ant as your creators and Io, having creators, period, it elevates the floor of we can create out of dysfunction on the court in real time.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the first time, we actually have another offensive engine and only one ISO ball player. Think back to even Cat. One of Cat's big flaws as like a supermax player is he wasn't really like a true shot creator, especially when you had to pin him in the corner more as a four. He's not. You almost have to manufacture some of his looks a little bit more than you'd like out of a
Yeah.
supermax player. He's still extremely talented and he can hit. The versatility on the shots he can hit is astounding, but he's not really a shot creator as much, which I thought bogged the offense down a couple years ago into a kind of your turn, my turn, where we were trying to force feed into the post where he can create a shot in the post. I should
Yeah.
clarify that. Um,
But even in the post, you still need someone to get you the ball in the post. You can't just
yeah,
pick it up and then post
yes.
somebody up.
So it like to have another offensive engine that's not an iso ball, and you brought this up, he's more of a pace pusher. He's chaos on the basketball court. He's a nightmare for a set defense. It's all he does. He just moves. And I think that style is and the lack of that type of co-star next to Ant is kind of why I don't think you've ever seen him have a very solid two-man game with his partner, his co-star. I think I have a lot of optimism that because of the style of LaMelo, it's going to be a little bit different this time around.
Yeah, exactly. And historically, when Minnesota's made a big roster move, it's led to a slow start. It's led
Mhm.
to the Rudy and Cat team that was flirting around 500 to below 500 the
Mhm.
first half of the year. The first year of Randall, they're 8-10, and we all think the sky is falling. And I
Yeah.
just, this is the first time I think we can realistically say this team has made a big roster change, and they should still be pretty good to start
Yeah.
because of LaMelo's ability to create in chaos, because of Io's ability as well, because of Ant. You have these guys who can now, they're kind of artists on the court. They can figure things
Mhm.
out on the fly. And then you have Rudy Gobert, who is a defensive floor raiser by himself,
Mhm.
regardless of what everything looks at. So LaMelo, we talk about the ceiling, but he's also an offensive floor raiser as well.
Yeah.
So between the high floor on offense, between the high floor on defense, between a lot of home games, and I think not being under the microscope that we initially thought it could have looked like to start the year, I think combined, this is about as low pressure and high expectation we could realistically be about a team that just
Yeah.
blew its roster up to get a big time player.
You know, and a tie back, we've kind of already touched on this. That is why I'm really high on this team in the regular season. I have cautious optimism in terms of their title chances until I can see kind of what the solution can be or how it works without a true power forward or a natural power forward. To our concerns earlier, I do think they need one more big body. Uh, that said, I'm really high on this team in the regular season. I think they have enough offense and defense to just give it every team in the league trouble. They're gonna have a chance to win every night, uh, and they're gonna run teams off the court. And
Mhm.
I think they have a chance to make a run at the Timberwolves regular season record this year. I think they can be that good of a regular season team. Not gonna run to Kelsey to place a bet on it. Um, And then there's a lot I need to see to actually label them a contender. But regular season wise, it would not surprise me to see them get off to a start and keep the momentum going.
And one thing I've learned with this is we can have conversations about how we envision it looking to go into the season, how we can have these expectations. But I also want to emphasize we don't really know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So I can't just give you a black and white picture of, okay, if they don't win as many games as I initially thought that they would to start the year, that it's the end of the world. It
Mhm.
depends on what we see on the court. Of
Yeah.
course, if LaMelo Ball and Rudy Gobert are punching each other and they're 6-11, yeah, that would be a little concerning. But if they're just figuring things out, but you see the flashes and you see camaraderie, and maybe they
Yeah.
start a little slower than we expect, I don't want to do the Twitter thing that I have done before. You mentioned it.
Mhm.
Some
I have
Randall
2. Oh,
Randall
yeah.
Nas questions on Twitter in October, November, December. I have some tweets to delete. Um, so
Yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
I was doing the same thing. All of us were. I think it's just reflecting on it now, it's just I made the same mistake, and I remember thinking it going into last year, like, "Okay, gotta give Chris Finch time," and then here I was complaining about Nas and Randall. So this year, I'm very serious about, like, okay, this is just gonna be ugly at times. There's gonna be lineups that don't friggin' make sense. Um, but I'm curious if he continues to go to those lineups, there's a reason, and there's something he truly believes in. So I'm just that part I'm curious about. But to your point, there's a chance they start the year 4-3. It's a tough opening schedule. And they play some decent teams, and it could be they might just have a couple things to figure out. So it would not shock me if they, after that San Antonio game on Saturday on Halloween night, if they are 3-4. It would not. Even 2-5. It wouldn't
That would
surprise me.
be I'm on the it depends on how the games are won and lost, but if they're
Yeah,
2 and
yeah.
5, I would be a little bit, "What
Two
the
and five would
hell?"
be tough. I almost want to take that one back, but it wouldn't surprise me about 3-4. And then that would lead into a favorable stretch. And that's when I
Wow.
think the season could really be made from that November 6th through, honestly, the month of November.
Yeah.
The month of November is going to be a great indication of where this team is going.
And I can't wait for just the I it's gonna feel I'm gonna feel guilty watching LaMelo Ball get a rebound and throw an outlet pass to Jaden in transition.
I
That
can't wait for Rudy Gobert's first corner 3-point attempts.
I think it's going to feel like a forbidden fruit. Somebody who can make
Yeah.
an outlet pass in transition. What? That's going to be so weird, man. I
Yeah.
I felt like I was seeing an alien when I saw Io just grab the ball and push the pace in transition by himself. That felt different. And now we're building up to it. Like LaMelo just full court pass, corner
Yeah.
three, and oh my gosh. I want to make one more point about LaMelo
Yeah.
Ball also, because it's kind of become the theme of the show today. There's going to be a spotlight on LaMelo Ball from a national perspective that he's really never had in his career.
Mhm.
Of course, he's an icon his whole life, so there's been a spotlight, but I hope I did my numbers right. I think I did. LaMelo Ball is going to have more national TV games this year on ESPN, ABC, TNT, those big channels, Peacock. He's going to have more of those games on national TV this year than his first 6 years combined.
Ooh.
I
Wow.
believe in his first 6 years, there's been 15 national TV games of that sort for Charlotte
Wow.
that are not NBA TV.
Welcome to Minnesota.
27.
That's nuts. And
And
okay, we talked about this earlier. You mentioned there's one less game than last year.
nobody can get enough of Julius Randle, dude. That's the
Oh
problem.
man. But here's the deal. I thought they had way more Peacock and streaming service games. I think they have more primetime NBC, ABC, ESPN games than they ever have. They've never had like the true spotlight game. They've had like the streaming service one out that's technically national and counts as national, but they haven't had the big games. Or
True.
they have, but not as many as this year.
Yeah, and the type of games, right? I thought the
Yeah.
Christmas game was a big step last year, but that was on the road.
Ooh.
This is at home.
Uh-huh.
And I think that Minnesota and Miami being headlined with the new star versus new star, I think that's another creative story. I
Mhm.
think LaMelo and Charlotte on MLK Day, that's another story. So the
Mhm.
league is doing a good job building stories, I think,
Yeah.
affiliated with Minnesota. And to be clear, I hope I'm right that it's 50. I believe it's 15 on ESPN, ABC, and TNT with LaMelo the first 6 years. I looked it up and then I use AI to verify it. So I'm hoping
There
I'm
you
right.
go. There you
But
go.
it's just there's going to be a new spotlight on it. And I
Yeah.
think LaMelo's not had enough big games in his career. And it's going to feel crazy because the first half of the year, which I think is ideal, they're going to get it figured out and have moderately a decent amount of national TV games, 9 of 41. But then it's going to be 18 of 41 to close the year.
Mhm.
And that is not even talking about flex games, because I believe Minnesota had 2 more flexes last year. I think they had up to 30 national TV games.
Wow.
So they could get flexed up a couple times too.
Yeah. I
So
mean, that's just it too. They could get off to that like 13, 14 win run after November. And I mean, if that happens, one, the team's clicking, and two, because they're clicking, that means LaMelo and Ant are probably really friggin' fun to watch. Uh,
mhm.
so it's gonna be hard to not market this team if you're the NBA. If they get off to a start and they're winning and they're clicking, you're gonna want them on the TV every night you can.
Yep. Absolutely. And I just especially I think one of the bigger questions I have with LaMelo is just how he does adapt to those bigger games, because the numbers suggest he is a lot better against lower end teams than higher end teams. How much of that is going to be just having a better team around you when you're that
Yeah.
archetype of player, and also just experience, exposure. I am really excited to see how he handles it year one. They're 25, which I think we have to emphasize. So not everything has to be figured out year one, but of course you want
Yeah.
those encouraging signs, man. But yeah, any final thoughts?
I am ready for October 21st, my friend. I can't come
Mm.
soon enough. We got a lot more coming. I do think, I mean, the Wolves only have 13 NBA roster spots filled. So there's going to be at least one more signature coming through. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, if they make a bid for Kuminga or if they decide to send it on guard heavy. But I can't wait for Timberwolves basketball, my friend.
No doubt, man. I think that's the final offseason story before the season. Unless they keep getting a cool social media storyline for us, because shout out to Rudy Gobert, shout out to the Timberwolves, because they've done a great job entering our feed with LaMelo Ball content and the team's content. So that's thrilling. So hopefully they got some more stuff to, keep us engaged as we get into the start of this coming season. But yeah, guys, so I want to do something really quick before the show. I would like to make an announcement, everybody. So Wilder Rules Podcast just joined Believe Network for podcasting. And for everybody who's listening to the show, it is not going to make a difference on the type of content you see in any stretch of the imagination, but I am incredibly excited for the show's opportunity to continue growing in an exciting, podcasting network community they have growing. And I think it's going to be really good just for the show's growth and long-term trajectory overall. So Wilder Wool is part of Believe Network now, and I am super excited. So thank you all so much for the support of the show. It's going to be a big second year, so thank you all. And my guy, Tim, man, you always kill it, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. I love that we can just kind of go on a show with an idea. We're going to talk about the schedule, and then we start rambling about LaMelo Ball, and we just leave it alone. Hell yeah.
Hey, congratulations on the podcast network. That's awesome, man. It's fun watching your show continue to climb up.
Thank you, man. I super appreciate it. I was like before the show, like, how do I make an announcement? I've never done this before. This is new to me. So hopefully it turned out okay. It feels like calling somebody and like giving a voicemail almost. Do you ever have that feeling? You call someone, you're like, that voicemail sucked.
Oh yeah. I'm in sales. It happens almost daily to me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, man. But thank you all so much. It was a fun episode. We'll have more content in the coming weeks. Make sure to subscribe to Wilder Wolves as we get into a major season, even though it is definitely the quiet part of the off season, and the Minnesota Vikings can keep us distracted. The quarterback competition over. So we'll see what happens with them. I'm always heartbroken by them, but hopefully they show up, man. But are you a Viking fan, Tim?
Oh, of course. Good. This is the year. I'm more casual on the Vikings though. When I chose Timberwolves coverage, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get obsessive about one sport. The rest I'm going to keep casual.
Absolutely, man. It's good to keep that fandom. I just literally just whine on Twitter. That's all I do with the Vikings. I just whine, and it's all good. But all right, man. It was good seeing you, bro. And thank you all so much. This is Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame Mode Fandom.